onto his program perch here, so we can kind of bring him all over the place outside of his exhibit, as opposed to all the other sloths that you might have seen that are his family members. So his older sister, Maxine, does live up at TF, so if you've been through, you've seen her before. And both of his parents and his younger sibling live at Stone Zoo. But Molasses is the only one that's trained to come out on his programs. So right now he's in his crate right here, so we're gonna let him out in just a moment. But I'm gonna kind of like explain our setup here. When we bring him out for a program, we set up his perch so he's got room to climb out, and you'll really get the chance to see how he moves around and climbs on there. Amanda is also here with me today, and she's going to be doing training with him, so she's going to be fully focused on Molasses and keeping an eye on him to make sure he's feeling okay, comfortable, he's getting all those snacks for coming out on his program. But Amanda might chime in and help answer some questions or pop some stuff in. And once we're ready to let him out, I'm going to lift this crate cover out and we'll take the door off. And Molasses will climb right out onto the perch all the way on his own. And then we will put the crate down for just a minute. And Amanda will be giving him those treats and rewards for being out and just having a good time climbing. And if she does see him start getting a little bit nervous, we will put the crate back up if he kind of decides he's had enough and he's done. One of the big things that we work for with all of our animal ambassadors here at the zoo is choice and control. So when we get him ready for a program, we actually will hold up his crate in the exhibit and he will climb in on his own, and then we can just wheel him out wherever we're going. Same thing for here, so we'll put it up, open the door, he comes out if he wants to. If he decides he doesn't want to, or if he's ready for session to end, he can climb back into his crate. So if he does end session a little bit early, that's okay. We want this to be a positive experience for him. And he'll still get those chance for rewards, so if he does climb back in, he's just going to kind of curl up and relax and hang out. And we'll still have a chance for people to kind of take a look at him as he sits right in the crate. So, all right, we ready to go?
And Amy, if he chooses not to go in the crate from his exhibit, what happens then?
If he decides he doesn't want a crate and come out for a program, then we'll just decide, all right, that's his call. We'll bring out a different animal instead that
Awesome.
He's ready to participate. So here he is. Amanda's going to take just a moment to kind of get him out. He's kind of sometimes he needs to think about it a little bit. So Amanda actually has some of his favorite foods with him. He does get a variety of things, and right now what we have for him for training is sweet potato, carrots, and also some grapes, and those are some of his favorite treats. He gets the carrots and sweet potato every day as part of his diet, but we've actually found out one of his favorite ways to have those is actually to get cooked in the microwave a little bit. He really enjoys it that way. And you'll see what Amanda's doing right here. If you hear that click with the target. So he is, as well as trained to go into the crate on his own, he is target trained. So we can use this to help guide him out. And what his goal when he's being targeted is he will go up and touch the tip of his nose to that target pole. And that click tells him that he did a great job and that there is a treat coming his way. So he's kind of thinking about it a little bit. He's not sure if he wants to come out, and again, that's okay. So, and you can kind of get a look at him as he's kind of coming out, that front foot there with the two claws, that's why he's called the Linnaeus two-toed sloth. He does have two claws on his front feet, and he does have three on the back. And as he's kind of climbing out, you can really get a look at that hand and see just how well it's adapted to hanging onto the branch. Those claws help give him a really good grip, and he has a really strong foot to give him a solid grasp.
And as he's coming out, Amy, can you just tell us a little bit about the perch itself and kind of the setup of it, the kind of triangle?
So originally when we had this perch set up, when we first brought him out for programs, it was just the straight branch here. But one of the recent additions that we did was actually to add these two other branches right on here to give him more options. So sometimes when he's climbing on the one branch, so that's not a lot of space for him to climb around on. We wanted to give him a little bit more space to climb around and explore and really get to kind of show off just how well he can move.
Awesome.
You see he's working on it, so he's making his way. And that's perfectly okay. Sometimes he's a little bit slow coming out, sometimes he's pretty excited. It kind of depends on his mood for the day. Like right now, he's really interested. He wants those snacks, but he doesn't quite want to come out. So let's see what he can do. And you are getting a good look at his face. So these guys are actually found in South America, living in the rainforests. He does have some really cool features that'll help him survive in there. These guys are most active at night. So if you got a look at his face, as he was climbing out there, you'll see those eyes are really small. He doesn't really rely on his eyesight to help him move around. His sense of smell is what he usually uses. They do move really slow. We do think of slow when it comes to sloths. So he kind of slowly will move about the trees and smell around for that food and what he eats. In the wild, these guys are omnivores, so they'll eat a little bit of everything. But almost primarily what they're going to be eating is leaves, berries, kind of anything they can be finding right on there. So they rely on that sense of smell to kind of help them find their food, and they move slow, so they don't really need to be able to see or hear very well. Taking a look at him, you don't really see any ears on the side of his head. He actually has 2 holes that are kind of hidden underneath all the fur. I'm just going to give him a little reset. So sometimes if he's a little not sure about coming out, what we can do is kind of close the door, kind of put it down, and then put it back up, and just kind of give him a moment. And sometimes that'll kind of give him a moment to be like, all right, I just got out. Sometimes he gets a little too comfy in the crate, so we'll just give him a moment and see.
And some of you might be thinking, a lot of people would say, oh, is he being slow like a sloth? But they actually move pretty quickly when they want to. So this is kind of all up to him. It's not necessarily that he's just being slow, but he's choosing, am I comfortable with this situation? And Amy and Amanda are giving him that opportunity of letting him choose, if he's not comfortable with the situation, to not force him out. So as you can see, he is quite interested. He can see and smell those sweet potatoes and carrots there. But he's deciding, do I want to take those back feet off and actually come out? Some of you may have pets at home who try to trick you into thinking they're doing something when they're not really doing it. I don't know if any of you have dogs at home. This is what my dogs do. They'll sit, but not all the way to the actual ground. That's a little bit like what Molasses is doing here. He's coming out and saying, I'm out, but he's not all the way out yet.
Exactly what he's that is, sometimes with his target pole, he does try and cheat a little bit. He knows he's supposed to touch it with his nose. Sometimes he'll kind of like stop just short of it, or he'll try and grab it with his foot instead. So get a little cheat in there. But Caitlin mentioned how they can be how we think of them as very slow. There's actually a really good reason for that. These guys primarily eat leaves and things which aren't very nutrient heavy, so they're not really great. They don't get a lot of food from eating, a lot of energy from eating those foods, and it takes a lot of energy to really process those. So getting a good look at him relaxing, these guys will actually spend 15 to 18 hours a day sleeping. So they are nocturnal, so he usually is kind of sleeping. He's used to kind of getting up a little bit in the afternoon and doing some work with us or coming out. But usually he'll spend most of the morning and afternoon pretty out cold, unless they're eating, they're sleeping. And they do that to help them conserve energy. And by staying very still and moving slowly, that helps them to camouflage right in with the trees, because they spend almost all of their time up in the trees and only come down in order to go to the bathroom, which is only about once a week. And yeah, along with moving really slow, you might have gotten to see some of that really thick, coarse hair that he has, and that helps him to camouflage very easily up into the trees. And one of the really neat things about their fur is there's actually a little groove so they can actually grow algae, because they move so slowly and it's so moist in the rainforest that it grows right on their fur, which can give them a nice greenish tint, so it gives them even better camouflage to stay hidden.
His hair is a little staticky from the crate.
Yeah.
But Katie had a great question of how did we go about crate training? How did he learn to go into a crate on his own?
So usually for crate training, for getting them used to that, we would leave the crate right in his exhibit space so that he might get comfortable going in on his own. We also, if he goes, we could start by, as soon as he approaches it, giving him a lot of reinforcement and some of his favorite foods for going near it. And then just kind of increasing as he goes. Give him stuff for like coming over the crate initially, and then for starting to go in, he's trying to cheat a little bit again with that target. So it's a very step-by-step process of, as he kind of learns and gets comfortable hanging out in that crate, we make sure this crate is a very safe, comfortable place for them to be in, so they feel they go in the crate and they know they're safe and nothing scary is going to happen.
And there was another great question of what other favorite treats that he gets are.
So some of his other favorite treats, we don't have some today, is corn. He actually does really love corn. And one of his favorite things that we can kind of seasonally give him is mulberry leaves, which we do have some mulberry trees that grow on the grounds here at the zoo. So we can go pick some and he can get some nice fresh leaves off of those branches, and he goes crazy for those. So unfortunately this time of year we can't get him any of the mulberry browse. So once spring comes around, we'll be able to give that to him, and that's some of his favorite treats.
You're requiring a lot of patience here today.
So you might be getting a look kind of as he opens his mouth there. One of the really neat things about them is they actually have very few teeth. Only a handful. Usually in the wild, he would be they have a very hard lip that would help him tear the leaves off. And it's actually really neat. Usually you think of rodents or mice and rats of having teeth that constantly grow. Sloths actually have it the same way. Those teeth get worn down by eating the leaves and all those other tougher foods they find in the wild, so they're always growing.
And how old is Molasses?
Molasses is 4 years old. He was born on November 2nd. So, and he was actually born right at Stone Zoo before he kind of came over to us here at Franklin.
And how long do they usually live for?
In the wild, they usually live to be about 10 or 12 years old. In captivity, in human care, they can live to up to 40 years. So they can have quite a lifespan. So Molasses will hopefully be with us for a very long time.
And one really cool thing, because we're getting a really awesome angle of him, is you can see those whiskers underneath his chin, if you guys can see that. And that is to help him feel around his mouth, because they do not have the best eyesight. So anything that kind of helps them determine what they are coming across, look at his tongue, what they are coming across is helpful. So those whiskers help him to do that.
Yeah, I also mentioned, like, you don't see any ears on his head, but he actually does have little holes right on the side of his head that are hidden right under the fur, kind of right about here. Usually you can only see them if he kind of puffs up his fur, which is something we only see if he's really upset. So right now he's very calm, he's relaxed, he's not puffed up or making upset sounds, he's just treats without coming out.
Why do sloths do that, Amy? Puff up if they're upset.
So they can do that to make themselves look very big and intimidating. Most of their protection from predators, usually in the wild, they would have to be very careful for ocelots or jaguars. And usually their best defense is being up in the trees and being camouflaged with that fur and not being seen. But they also do have a couple of those front teeth that he has are pretty sharp, so he can use those to help defend himself, and those claws too can also help to defend him. But looking big and scary and kind of blending in can be some of his best defense. So looking a little bit bigger than he is.
Awesome. And we had a great question from Kim about if his normal position is upside down.
Yes, so usually any time of the day when They're eating even when a baby's being born, they'll be hanging upside down from that branch. Their legs are actually very strong and they're designed to spend their entire day hanging upside down. Usually if they're not hanging, kind of like what he's doing right now, he'll curl up into a little ball. You kind of see him in here. But in the wild, they would curl up into the fork of a tree and kind of get comfortable, and they kind of look just like a little termite mound or just like a little knot in the wood. And they're staying perfectly still, so they camouflage right in, and that helps keep them safe, even though they're napping most of the day.
Awesome. Well, I think he's telling us he's ready to go back to sleep now. We got him to come out a little further onto the perch so you guys could get a nice look at his face and his teeth and his claws. So thank you all so much for joining us. And if you have any other questions, you can put them into the chat and we'll do our best to get those answered, showing us a very interesting sloth position at the moment. But thank you all so much for joining us for our sloth training session. Thank you, Amy and Amanda. And hopefully we'll see you all again with more sloth soon. Bye.